It's time for a summer dose of Big East hoops talk and some NBA draft talk as well. Who better to do it with than a guy who is all over the scene for The Athletic year-round. He has been swamped. Mock drafts around the clock, tons of team breakdowns, so you can read them at theathletic.com. Best time of year to do it. It's Sam Vecenie. Sam, let's dive right into it with Big East storylines. Give me your summer Big East power rankings heading into the 2019-20 campaign.
Yeah, so I would have Villanova at number one right now. Obviously, they get guys like Colin Gillespie and Sadiq Bey back, Jermaine Samuels. We can go down the line. Basically, all they lose is Eric Paschal and Phil Booth. I really like the freshmen they have coming in, though, more than anything. I think that, we talked about the great freshman class for Villanova last year, and, they didn't get as much value out of those guys as what we were anticipating. But, two guys in Brian Antoine and Jeremiah Robinson Earl, I think that those two are a little bit more ready to compete at the college level early on than what Villanova's, freshmen were last season. Antoine has a very polished game, and Jeremiah Robinson Earl is a big, strong dude who has a very polished game as well. Number two, I think I differ from a lot of people on this. A lot of people have Seton Hall at 2. I actually have Xavier at 2. I just look at what they bring back. I mean, I'm a big Paul Scruggs fan. I think he has a chance to be an all Big East player, first team even next season. You can say the same thing about Najee Marshall. Tyreek Jones is a great big man inside. Jason Carter, who they bring in from Ohio, also a really, really great addition for them from a depth perspective. And I would imagine he's probably going to start. And, I'm not even like a huge Quentin Gooden fan, but Quentin Gooden is someone that is going to help them pretty substantially. So I just look up and down the lineup, and I think they have more talent than anyone else in the league. Seton Hall, I would put at number 3 because I think Miles Powell's going to be the best player in the league next year. You could throw him and Marcus Howard into a hat and pick one, and you might be able to say this guy's better, that guy's better. I would take Powell because I think he's a little bit better on the defensive end. I think he just provides a little bit more than Marcus Howard does, even though Howard is such an explosive scorer. Quincy McKnight, Sandro, the big European guy whose last name I can't even pretend to pronounce. I think those guys are really, really good as well. The fourth team, again, I think I differ a little bit. I have Providence at number 4. I was a big fan of A.J. Reeves whenever I saw him on the court last season. Him and David Duke, I think, as sophomores are going to be an incredible pairing for Ed Cooley. They bring in the grad transfer, Luane Pipkins out of Massachusetts, who averaged 20 points a game in the A-10. And then, obviously, they get their best player back, Alpha Diallo, after he returns from the pre-draft process after he decided to test his stock through the NBA earlier this spring. And then finally, I would go with Marquette. I mean, I'm a big Kobe McEwen fan. We'll talk about him in a minute, I think. But, between Marcus Howard and Kobe McEwen, I would think that they're going to have the best backcourt in the country. Where I have some questions, obviously, how do they replace the production of the Hauser brothers? And also, how do they get Theo John and Jace Johnson, their graduate transfer center from Utah, on the floor at the same time? So I just kind of wonder a little bit about how Marquette makes their lineups work more than anything.
Let's stick with the Golden Eagles. You said Kobe McEwen, the Utah State transfer, sat out last season. What does he bring to this Golden Eagles roster?
Yeah, he's just a great live dribble scorer. 16 points a game. I want to say he was up around, 4 assists, 5 assists as a freshman, if I remember correctly. Can score from all 3 levels, really athletic. For a while, I thought he was a very real NBA prospect after his production as a freshman. I thought he was arguably the most underrated freshman in the country whenever he was at Utah State that first year. Stagnated a little bit in his second year under, a coaching staff that, ended up being let go. But I am a fan of what he brings to the table.
One of the teams not mentioned in your Big East Power 5 is Georgetown. There are real expectations for the Hoyas heading into Patrick Ewing's 3rd year at the helm. What's the pro for Georgetown and the concern that you want to see them lift?
Yeah, I think that they're going to have a great backcourt. They bring in Terrell Allen out of UCF, and then additionally, Mac McClung and James Akinjo, both of those guys are just really interesting creators. Now, they need to work on their game from a distribution and efficiency perspective. I think that that's the next step for those guys. But if they do that, I think Georgetown has a very real chance to make the NCAA tournament because I really think that they have upgraded in the front court just with Josh LeBlanc going from freshman year to sophomore year, but also they're going to get Omer Yurtseven to replace Jesse Govan. And I think Yurtseven is a guy that, probably is a little bit more traditional in terms of what Patrick Ewing would imagine from a center, just in terms of back to the basket game. He can go face up a little bit, but really, really polished back to the basket scorer who I think is going to open things up. And then I'm a huge Josh LeBlanc fan. That guy has the starter kit of like a DeAndre Hunter, realistically. If he can start knocking down shots from distance, he is a very, very real NBA prospect that could take Georgetown to the next level.
Wow, Josh LeBlanc, DeAndre Hunter, comparison there from a guy who knows it all too well, Sam Vecenie from The Athletic.
Got to shoot it, man. Got to shoot it.
Got to shoot it. I love it. We've talked about some of the mainstays in the league that are back, Marcus Howard, Miles Powell. You just brought up the Hoyas returning backcourt. Who are the under-the-radar players in the Big East that you have your eye on, Sam?
Yeah, I think we mentioned a couple. Kobe McEwen's a guy that Big East fans probably aren't super familiar with. Josh LeBlanc's another guy that I think, Big East fans might not be like wildly familiar with just because of the role that he played last season. Oh man, it's a really great question. I think that, the last guy I want to bring up is Villanova's Cole Swider. This is a guy who got hurt last year, but he was one of the late risers in the, what would that be, 2017 recruiting class, right? 2018 recruiting class. My years are all mixed up, but he was a late riser in that recruiting class. Really, really great shooter who I think gives Villanova the kind of, dimension that at times they were missing from their big position last season. They had Eric Paschal, but Pascal's a little bit more comfortable as a driver, whereas Swider is much more of that pure space four, can maybe even slide down occasionally to the five, can certainly play with Jeremiah Robinson Earl, that Jay Wright, I think prefers from the position. So I look at Cole Swider, high-level shooter, great fit with Villanova. I think that he's going to really show up in a big way next season.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see. You've got Villanova number one in your power rankings. Turning to the fourth team that you have in there, Providence. Ed Cooley signs an extension with the Friars. Well, that process never came to fruition in terms of a publicly announced contract offer. What does his stay at Providence say about what he's done and what that program has given him?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think that what it says is the pool of home sometimes is just so great, right? I'm sure it feels like home on so many levels for him. And more than anything, I think it says a lot about Ed Cooley as a coach, that he has built Providence to the level that he feels comfortable saying, you know what? Michigan's a great university, obviously. It's a great job, but I see just as much upside with a school like Providence as I do with Michigan. And ultimately, that's the call you have to make in that situation if you're Ed Cooley. Do you think that you can get to the highest levels of the sport at Providence? And ultimately, I think that his decision to stay says that about the Providence program, that Ed Cooley genuinely believes he can make a Final Four at Providence. He can make a national title game at Providence. And you know what? I think we've seen enough from Ed Cooley to not doubt him at this stage at the very least.
You brought up Georgetown earlier, and they weren't on your Power 5, and yet you said they're top 8 seed potentially for the NCAA tournament if the cards aligned. Yeah. That said, how many bids do you have the Big East getting super early in 2020?
Yeah, man, that's a good question. I think I would probably say 6 right now. I think that Georgetown is probably the last team I would not throw. Maybe Creighton too, actually. So maybe I would say 7. Creighton should be in there, like no question. So yeah, I would say 7. I don't think I can say DePaul should be in there. I don't think that St. John's is going to be ready after this rebuilding project that they're going to be undergoing. And I'm not a huge fan of the talent on this Butler roster, to be real, but I don't know that I want to bet against Kamar Baldwin either. That guy is just a special dude. But I think I would say 7 comfortably right now, just because I think that Creighton, even though they lose Krompel unexpectedly to the NBA draft, that backcourt is just so good between Tyshawn Alexander, Mitchell Bollock, Davion Mintz coming back as well. Like, these guys have the goods to be able to take Creighton to 20 wins pretty easily next year. I just do wonder what they do in the front court at the end of the day, and that makes them just a little bit more of a borderline selection than some of the other teams to me.
The Australian native Jacob Epperson could be relied upon to deliver, but he has dealt with injury issues, so they need him at full health to get something from him down low. But they do return 4 of their 5 stars, so that's certainly interesting. Transitioning to the NBA draft on Thursday night, Sam, Eric Paschal, Shamari Pons are expected to get their names called. What about these two stands out for organizations?
Yeah, I think with Paschal, it's the versatility, right? He's 6'7" with a 7-foot wingspan, 250 pounds, has athletic explosiveness and the ability to shoot above the break threes. Having that combination of skills, it just makes him tailor-made to be a role player at the next level. Shamari Pons, obviously just an incredible live dribble player. Can get anywhere on the floor with a ball screen, can make exceptional passes that I think often go underrated. But more than that, I mean, this dude is a scorer. He has the ability to get to the basket, finish, has the ability to knock down shots from all 3 levels, and he can do it off the pull-up game too, and that's such an important part. I look at Pons as a potentially high-level backup guard that should at least be in the top 45 of most boards. So yeah, I'm a Shamari Pons guy, and I'll be interested to see where he goes on draft night.
All right, I'm just looking out for you. Have you been able to get out into the California sun lately?
No. There's no chance.
You got to get out there in July. You've been swamped. I just want to make sure you're good, man. Do we need to send something for you?
No, the good news is that, like, I've got a beautiful balcony, like, that I'm right next to right now. I get to do my work out there on the balcony. I'll go record a podcast out on the balcony right now. We'll all be good, but it's just that time of year where from now until basically July 12th or so, there's just no chance.
No chance. That's okay. In July, there's an ice cream cone. There's the shore waiting for you. And you give the Big East fans a bit of a primer. Maybe next time you Skype into us, you'll come from us. We'll be big time enough for the balcony.
Oh, I mean, I thought about it, but it wasn't sunny enough today. I just didn't have the right lighting.
Sam Vecenie, read him at theathletic.com. He's got great stuff there day in, day out. Thanks, Sam.
Yeah, thanks, John.